Greetings builders, Daniel here and welcome to another top 3 video, where every week I choose a topic and show you my 3 favorite builds of it. And today's team is for those who like to chill. I'm talking about the cold builds. And if you wanna try any of those, you can find links for POBs and complete guides in the video description. And if this video helps you, please leave a thumbs up to support the channel. Thank you very much and let's get into it! Let's start our cold selection with the Freezing Pulse Totem's Hierophant with the Templar class. Totem builds are the first choice for many players because you can clear a lot of the game's content with very low investment, and the gameplay is super easy. This build here is no different. We use the Freezing Pulse skill on many totems for a great clear speed and switch to Ice Spear on bosses for an incredible boss damage. To list the pros of this build, I would start with how cheap and easy it is. Totem builds are very safe because you just need to summon them and they will do all the hard work while you wait behind in safety. Because of that, totem builds are great to clear high tier content with low grade gear. Above all, with this build you can use Ice Spear totems for boss fights, which grants a huge amount of single target damage. Now to list the cons, I'll start saying that since Freezing Pulse uses projectiles, obstacles can be a real pain for your clear speed, but everything will be okay if you keep repositioning your totems when needed. Another issue is that this build doesn't have access to evasion or spell suppression, but don't worry, as mentioned before, totem builds are very safe and if you mind your position, it will be hard for you to die. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 35 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 90 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 3 divines, but you can totally do it with less. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipment that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. This build needs 3 mandatory unique items, but they are normally very cheap and easy to get. The first one is the Soul Mantle Armor, that causes Socket Gems to be supported by a level 20 spell totem. This grants us an extra support skill gem. We also need a Kikazaru Ring to counter the effect of curses. This is because a side effect of Soul Mantle that will apply a random curse on you whenever a totem dies. Finally, we also need the Self-Flagellation Jewel that grants up to 20% increased damage for each curse on you. Thanks to Soul Mantle, you'll be always with around 9 curses, resulting on 180% increased damage. For clear speed, I'll give it 8 out of 10. You can summon 4 totems firing lots of Freezing Pulse projectiles with high cast speed. I just took 2 points out because you need to keep resummoning your totems all the time, and if they're behind any obstacles, the projectiles won't be able to hit enemies. The boss damage is incredible and deserves 10 out of 10. With this build we can easily replace the Freezing Pulse with Ice Spears on big bosses for a lot more single target damage. For the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. As a totem build, you'll always be far from action while your totems do all the work. So if you know how to mind your position, you can easily complete high tier maps with low grade gear. Above all, this build still counts with high armor and high block chance. Next we have the incredibly strong Archmage Ice Nova Hierophant with the Templar class. This build stacks as much mana as possible to take advantage of the Archmage support gem that grants up to 19% of your mana as extra lightning damage. The skill of choice was the Transfigured gem Ice Nova of Frostbolts that deals a lot more damage when casted near a Frostbolt. And to make things smoother, we're using the Kitavaster's helmet to automatically cast the Frostbolts for us. To visit the pros of this build, I would start with its boss damage. All of those overlapping Ice Novas on countless Frostbolts cause bosses to die like simple monsters. The clear speed is awesome as well. With the help of Frostblink of Wintry Blast, we can zoom through maps very fast while casting Ice Novas in all directions. It's just amazing. Now to visit the cons, I'll start saying that this build isn't cheap. It needs a few Divine Orbs to work properly. Another issue is that you must have extra mana in all pieces of equipment, and that might make the gearing process a little harder. Now talking about the budget, as mentioned before, this build isn't cheap. You need to invest at least 10 Divine Orbs to make it work. You only need 2 mandatory unique items for this build. The first and most important is the Kitavaster's helmet that triggers Socket Gems when you use at least 100 mana in one cast. This makes the Frostbolts needed to be casted automatically for a lot smoother clear speed. Next, we also need the Anathema Ring that causes our curse limit to be the same as our maximum power charges, in this case 4. For clear speed, I'll give this build 10 out of 10. We are just super fast and our Ice Novas are all over the place the whole time. You won't even have the chance to see the enemies before they get obliterated. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. It's just so many overlapping Ice Novas being casted on countless frostbolts that the bosses won't even have the chance to survive over than 2 seconds. For this survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. And not only have a big pool of life and energy shield, but also 50% of the damage is taken from mana before life. And as you know, we have a lot of mana on this build. We also hit enemies so many times per second that the instant leech causes your life to be full almost 100% of the time. Finally, we have this skill that in my opinion has the strongest Vaal version, the Vaal Ice Shot Deadeye with the Ranger class. Ice Shot is an awesome archer skill that freezes the whole screen of enemies, granting many explosions. Just as I did with the Lightning Arrow and the Tornado Shot build, the complete guide of this one will also count with 2 versions of this build, a budget and a complete one. Each has its own PoE and passive tree, so you can start this build even on a low budget and upgrade it later. To list the pros of this build, I would start with how strong Vaal Ice Shot is. When you use it on bosses, you won't even need your ballistas to obliterate them in less than a second. The clear speed is also outstanding, killing many monsters with only one shot. Now, to list the cons, I would say that this build is not very tanky. Even though you have some defensive layers, it's important to take advantage of your ranged attacks and stay far from danger. If you don't mind your position, you might die. About the budget, you can get it destroying early in-game maps with only around 80 chaos. To comfortable advanced to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. But if you go for the complete version, you need to invest at least 4 more divines. On the budget version, you don't need any mandatory unique item for this build. On the other hand, the complete version needs the Lionized Fall and the Thread of Hope unique jewels. They are expensive but grant a huge boost to your damage. For clear speed, I'll give it 10 out of 10. You fire many projectiles with high attack speed, and those projectiles chain on enemies, bounce off walls and go everywhere, freezing and exploding them. It's just amazing. The boss damage is also great and deserves 10 out of 10. As I said, Vaal Ice Shot is probably the strongest Vaal skill and can destroy bosses easily. Above all, you can also count with your ballistas for a lot more damage. For this survivability, I'll give this build 8 out of 10. Even though you have armor, evasion, spell suppression and you can kill enemies from a good distance, this build isn't very tanky. If you don't mind your position, you might die. And that's it for today, guys! What did you think about those cold builds? Please don't forget to tell me your thoughts in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day, and don't forget to keep building!